The hydrogen research has showed that the recession really doesn't seem to have had an impact on professionals' willingness to move abroad for work. Did that surprise you at all?
Well, it's not necessarily a great surprise. You could also explain it as, well, a coping mechanism if you want. Especially if things don't go well in your own country and people have kind of the impression, well, it's going to be quite a long way before their economy is going to see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's also the temptation to think that, well, the grass will be greener somewhere else. So in that sense, you could also explain the moving abroad as a little bit also a fantasy that means also a gateway to a new and better life. Now, however, having said this, what seems to be quite clear from this research is that once things do pick up, the global war for talent will definitely intensify. And the companies and countries that are going to attract the best and the most talented individuals are those who offer the best overall package, not just money-wise, but also quality of life-wise, education systems, infrastructure. All of this is part of the equation when people make a decision if and where to move abroad.
The research also showed that money wasn't the key motivator in people moving overseas. Did that surprise you?
Also, research on incentive systems has shown over and over again that money is a motivator, but it tends to be overestimated. Now, the funny thing is, when you ask people, what do you think others are motivated by, they put money always first. Now, surprisingly then, when they get asked, well, what is for you the most important thing in your job? They surely put money, but not in first place. It usually comes around number 3 factor, right? So in terms of the content of the work, the stimulation you get from the work, promotion possibilities, this seems to be even much more important than just the pure cash we talk about.
Did you find it unusual that it wasn't just young professionals who said they wanted to work abroad?
Right. Now, there may be a little bit of the grass being greener elsewhere, and this kind of feeling is not linked to a certain stage in life. These days, people have to be more and more flexible, and people are also willing to be more flexible. So especially if it's more or less on the explicit to-do list on the corporate career ladder, to say, well, if you really want to make it to the top, you obviously also can't only be stuck in headquarters, but you have to also see our operations elsewhere, somewhere in the world, at least for a couple of years. So people are aware of this, and thus also prepared to make the jump and to go abroad. You may also see different patterns depending on the stage of your career. If you think already quite senior people at their end 40s, beginning 50s, of course, in terms of flexibility, you may assume that, well, the nest building phase of their life is now behind them. And again, this gives you a whole lot of flexibility to move on and to also move abroad.
There were far more women respondents working abroad already. Is that something you find commonplace?
Well, I could say women do walk the talk, right, from these results. Now, yes, it is quite surprising to see that a higher percentage of women are already actually abroad. Now, this phenomenon has also been well documented for the case of Germany. After the reunification, a lot of people from Eastern Germany went westwards because there were more jobs, there were better paid jobs in the West. Now, even though both genders moved, it has been very well documented that a much higher percentage of women did move westwards, so leave their home region, than men. And it is difficult to pinpoint what exactly factor makes them to be more flexible. You could also draw the parallel to children leaving the nest, leaving their parents' home. And again, there also it has been very well documented that young women tend to leave their parents' home earlier than men, and also a lower percentage of women is still living with their parents than men. So again, another indicator for perhaps women's willingness to move out, to branch out to new shores, perhaps also because they may be a little bit more confident to kind of organize themselves in terms of setting up a household and setting up a new life. Also, one should not forget, of course, moving abroad, well, it's not only about lots of great intercultural experiences, lots of learning, but it's also a lot about, well, trying, retrying, adapting, sometimes also failing. And, well, if you don't leave home or also hotel mum, you spare yourself also a lot of, well, perhaps frustrating or painful experiences.